Clear your desk by the end of the day, Morgan. Human resources will handle the exit paperwork. The words on my computer screen blurred as I read them again. After 5 years of dedicated service to Pinnacle Solutions, all I got was a cold, impersonal email. 3 days. That's all I had taken to care for my critically ill mother. 3 days of approved family medical leave. We need people who prioritize their work, the email continued, as if attending to my mother's health crisis was an optional activity I had chosen over completing quarterly assessments. I sat back in my chair, the leather squeaking in the silence of the early morning. The Seattle office was still mostly empty, the sky outside just beginning to brighten with dawn. I had come in early, eager to catch up on work after my brief absence. My name is Morgan Chen, and until approximately 2 minutes ago, I was the senior project manager of the highest performing division at Pinnacle Solutions. At 36, I had built not just a career, but a team that felt like family. We celebrated milestones together, supported each other through difficult times, and pushed one another to excel professionally. I looked around my workspace, the small jade plant my team had gifted me last Christmas, the framed photo of us all at the company retreat, the handwritten thank you notes from team members I had mentored. 5 years of my life condensed into a few personal items that would fit in a cardboard box. The termination notice attached to the email was signed by Greg Bennett, my direct supervisor, who had personally approved my leave just last week. Failure to maintain adequate presence during critical operational periods, it read. My mother's health emergency apparently fell during one of these undefined critical periods. I didn't cry. I didn't slam my fist on the desk or storm into Greg's office demanding an explanation. Instead, I pulled out my phone and took a photograph of the email, then forwarded it to my personal account. Then I shut down my computer, stood up, and began methodically packing my things. By the time other employees started trickling in, my desk was half cleared. Layla from finance was the first to notice. Morgan, what's happening? She asked, her eyes widening at the sight of my box. I've been let go, I replied simply.
What? Why?
Apparently taking approved family leave to care for my critically ill mother wasn't showing proper priority for my work. Layla's face transformed from confusion to outrage. That's not right. Have you talked to Christine? The division head should know about this. No, I said, carefully wrapping my jade plant in newspaper. I'm not going to fight it, but I won't forget it either. When you work closely with people for years, you learn to read their expressions. As I continued packing, more of my team members arrived. Alex was the first of my direct reports to hear the news, his usual composed demeanor cracking instantly. This is ridiculous, he started, but I cut him off with a small shake of my head. It's done, Alex. Greg made his decision. But we just secured the Westlake contract last month. Client satisfaction is up 22% this quarter because of your leadership. I smiled sadly. Apparently that wasn't enough. 30. All 8 of my core team members had gathered around my desk in silent solidarity. Nadia, our technical specialist who rarely showed emotion, looked like she might throw something. Jordan, our client relations manager, was struggling to maintain composure. Behind them stood Alex, Priya, Marcus, Wei, Zoe, and Thomas, each with expressions ranging from disbelief to fury. You can't leave, Jordan insisted. The Davidson account review is next week. The Eastridge proposal is in final stages. None of us knows the integrated systems like you do. I finished taping up my box. Greg should have thought of that before he fired me for caring for my mother. The severity of what I'd just said hung in the air. My mother, still in recovery, the hospital bills still arriving, and now, this betrayal from a company I had poured my heart into. I need everyone back at their workstations, came a sharp voice from behind us. Greg Bennett stood there, arms crossed, his angular face set in a disapproving frown. We have deadlines to meet. No one moved. Now, he added, his voice rising slightly. After a long moment, my team dispersed, each giving me a meaningful look as they returned to their workstations. Greg approached me, lowering his voice. This could have been handled with more discretion, if you'd waited until the end of the day to pack up. I met his gaze steadily, like the discretion you showed in firing me via email after approving my family medical leave. His jaw tightened. Business needs change rapidly. Pinnacle needs people who understand that priorities shift. Your mother's situation was unfortunate. But don't, I warned, my voice deadly quiet. Don't finish that sentence, Greg. For a moment, something like uncertainty flickered across his face. Then he straightened, adjusting his glasses. Human resources is expecting you. Please don't make this more difficult than it needs to be. I picked up my box. Don't worry, I won't make a scene. But remember this moment, Greg. You might find it important later. The Human Resources office was antiseptic. Beige walls, minimal decoration, and Robert Lynn's sympathetic but practiced expression. He was new to the company, having joined just 4 months ago, and I could see he was uncomfortable with the situation. "I'm sorry about this, Morgan," he said, sliding separation papers across his desk. "And I'm very sorry about your mother." "Thank you," I replied, scanning the documents. Standard severance, 2 weeks' pay, a non-disparagement clause, a reminder of my non-compete agreement, which prohibited me from working for direct competitors for 6 months. "Is there anything I should know about why this happened?" Robert asked cautiously. "This seems abrupt." I debated how much to share, then decided on the truth. I pulled out my phone and showed him the email. 3 days of approved family medical leave, and I'm fired for not prioritizing work. Robert's professional demeanor slipped, his eyes widening. "This is the actual termination notice, just an email. No performance improvement plan, no documented warnings. No, nothing," I confirmed, watching him make a note on his tablet. "Need to verify some things with the legal department. Would you excuse me for a moment?" While Robert stepped out, I gazed through the window. From this floor, I could see Elliott Bay and the Puget Sound stretching toward the horizon. My mother and I had often walked along that waterfront. She'd taught me resilience there, watching the tides come and go against the shore. "The tide always changes, Morgan," she'd say, "but the shore remains. Be like the shore." Robert returned 20 minutes later, his expression carefully neutral, but his tight smile told me everything. Nothing would change. "Unfortunately, Washington is an at-will employment state," he began. "The company is within its rights, though I understand," I interrupted, signing the documents without further argument. "Pinnacle can do whatever it wants, just like I can." He hesitated, then lowered his voice. "Off the record, this isn't right. If you wanted to pursue action, I don't," I said firmly. "But thank you." As I walked through the main office toward the exit, I felt eyes following me. My team watched silently, their faces somber. I gave them a small smile. My last act as their leader. Outside, the October air was surprisingly crisp. I placed my box in the trunk of my car and sat in the driver's seat, allowing myself a moment to process everything. My phone chimed with a text message, then another, and another. "Alex, this is wrong. What can we do?" "Jordan, are you okay? Can we meet up later?" "Nadia, Greg's an absolute coward." The team is furious. More messages poured in, expressions of outrage, support, loyalty. These people weren't just colleagues. They were my professional family. I started my car, a plan already forming in my mind. I wouldn't fight Pinnacle directly. I wouldn't sue, though I probably had grounds. No, I would be strategic, patient, like my mother taught me. The shore remains while the tides change. My phone rang. It was Sarah Kaminsky, the COO of Meridian Systems, Pinnacle's most formidable competitor. We'd met at an industry conference last year, and kept in touch. She'd been trying to recruit me for months. It was time to return her call. The Meridian Systems office was everything Pinnacle wasn't. Modern design, collaborative workspaces, and floor-to-ceiling windows, showcasing the Seattle skyline. Sarah Kaminsky, a poised woman with sharp eyes and a confident demeanor, welcomed me with a warm handshake. "I've been hoping you'd call," she said, guiding me to a conference room. Though I admit, I didn't expect it would be under these circumstances. Word traveled fast in our industry. Sarah already knew about my termination, though not the details. I filled her in as we sat down, showing her Greg's email. "That's not just bad management," Sarah said, frowning. "That's unconscionable. Family medical leave exists for a reason. Pinnacle has always valued profits over people," I replied. "I just never thought I'd be on the receiving end." Sarah leaned forward. "I'll be direct, Morgan. I want you at Meridian. We're expanding our enterprise solutions division, and we need someone with your expertise. The director position is yours, if you want it."
My heart raced.
Director, a significant step up from my role at Pinnacle. More responsibility, more authority, better compensation. "What about my non-compete?" I asked. Sarah smiled. "Our legal team has reviewed it. It's excessively broad and likely unenforceable. Plus, we'd cover any legal expenses if Pinnacle tried to enforce it. I'd need to consider it carefully," I said. "Of course," Sarah replied. "Take the weekend. We can discuss specifics on Monday." That evening, I met Jordan and Alex at Harborview Cafe, a small bistro away from downtown, where we wouldn't likely run into other Pinnacle employees. They arrived together, their expressions a mix of anger and concern. How are you holding up? Jordan asked, sliding into the booth. I'm managing, I assured them. It's been a difficult few weeks, but I'll be fine. Alex frowned. Greg's made a massive mistake. The office is already in disarray. Nobody knows where the Davidson documentation is stored, and your system access hasn't been transferred to anyone else. That sounds like a Greg problem, I replied, taking a sip of my tea. Jordan leaned forward. It's more than that. Everyone's talking, not just our team. People are outraged about how you were treated. I hadn't expected that.
Really?
You were respected, Morgan, Alex said, not just by us. The way Greg handled this, people are worried now. If they do this to you, their top project manager, what would they do to anyone else? Jordan nodded. Christine has been asking questions. The division head seems concerned. Good, I said simply. As we talked, more texts arrived from other team members. Similar stories of confusion, frustration, and anger at management. Pinnacle was feeling my absence already. What will you do now? Alex asked. I hesitated. I've had an offer. From Meridian. Their eyes widened. But my non-compete, those aren't always enforceable, Jordan said quickly. She worked with contracts daily and knew the legalities, especially if they fired you without cause. That's what Meridian's legal team said, but it's still a risk. Alex's phone buzzed. He checked it and grimaced. Greg's calling an emergency meeting tomorrow morning, Saturday. He's never done that before. The Davidson review is due Monday, Jordan explained to me. Nobody can find your analysis files. I smiled slightly. Those files were properly stored on the company server, but my particular organizational system wasn't immediately obvious to others. I hadn't anticipated this would become an issue, but I couldn't deny feeling a flicker of satisfaction. I should get going, I said, gathering my bag. Early appointment tomorrow. As I stood to leave, Alex caught my eye. Morgan, if you did go to Meridian, hypothetically speaking, would they be hiring? I paused, studying their faces. Hypothetically, yes, they're expanding significantly. The look that passed between Alex and Jordan told me everything. Saturday morning, I met with Elena Rivera, an employment attorney recommended by a colleague. Her office was modest but professional, with credentials from top universities displayed on the walls. I explained my situation, showing her the email and termination notice. This is textbook wrongful termination, Elena said, setting aside her tablet. Firing someone for taking approved family medical leave could be argued as both a breach of contract and a violation of good faith employment practices. I'm not interested in litigation, I clarified. I just want to understand my options regarding my non-compete agreement. Elena reviewed the document carefully. This is excessively restrictive. 6 months prohibition on working for competitors within a 50-mile radius. That's essentially forcing you to leave the industry or relocate. Is it enforceable? I asked. In Washington, it's questionable, especially given the circumstances of your termination. Courts typically won't enforce non-competes when the employer acts in bad faith. She leaned back in her chair. What's your plan, Morgan? Meridian Systems has offered me a position. Better title, better compensation. Elena nodded. Pinnacle would have to prove that you're causing them actual harm by working there. Given that they terminated you, that's a difficult argument to make. She made some notes. I'd say proceed with careful consideration, but don't let this non-compete prevent you from advancing your career. Over the weekend, my phone continued buzzing with messages from my former team. The emergency Saturday meeting had apparently been contentious. Greg was pressuring everyone to absorb additional responsibilities to cover my absence, with no additional compensation. The Davidson account files had been located, but nobody fully understood my integrated methodology. By Sunday evening, I had made my decision. Monday morning, I called Sarah Kaminsky. I accept your offer, I told her, but I have one condition. Name it. Sarah replied, I want to build my own team. If my former colleagues from Pinnacle apply to Meridian, I want them to receive fair consideration. Absolutely. Sarah agreed. If they're half as talented as you, we'd be fortunate to have them. That afternoon, I signed my contract with Meridian, Director of Enterprise Solutions. The salary was 35% higher than what I'd been making at Pinnacle, with superior benefits and a sign-on bonus. As I left Meridian's offices, I checked my phone to find 8 new messages, one from each core member of my former team. They all wanted to meet for dinner, privately. Tuesday evening, I sat at a reserved table in a quiet restaurant downtown, waiting. Alex arrived first. Then, Jordan. One by one, Nadia, Priya, Marcus, Wei, Zoe and Thomas joined us until we filled a large table in the private dining area. Pinnacle is falling apart, Nadia said, without preamble. Greg's micromanaging everyone. Christine is scrutinizing his decisions, and clients are asking questions. The Davidson account is considering other options, Jordan added. They specifically asked why you weren't handling their review. I sipped my water, listening, as each shared similar stories of disorganization and frustration. We heard you've accepted a position at Meridian, Alex finally said. The others grew quiet, watching me intently. Information travels quickly, I observed. We want to join you there, Jordan stated firmly. The others nodded in agreement. I studied their faces. You all have established positions at Pinnacle, stable employment. Are you certain you want to risk that? What stability? Marcus asked bitterly. If they'd fire you for taking approved family leave, none of us are secure. Meridian is hiring, I said carefully. I can't guarantee anything, but I can provide referrals. Each of you would need to apply formally. We already have, Wei revealed, showing confirmation emails on her phone. All 8 of us. Yesterday. I couldn't hide my surprise. You applied before speaking with me. We trust you, Morgan, Zoe said simply. Where you lead, we follow. I felt a surge of emotion, gratitude, mixed with vindication. Let me make some calls. 30 a.m. The caller ID displayed Christine Taylor, Pinnacle's division head. Morgan. Christine's voice had a strained calmness. We need to talk. Good morning, Christine, I replied, keeping my tone neutral. What can I do for you? I've just received 8 resignation letters, all from your former team, all effective immediately. There was a pause. Care to explain? I took a measured breath. I'm not sure what explanation you're seeking. I don't work for Pinnacle anymore. They're all going to Meridian, where you just started as director. Her voice hardened. This doesn't appear coincidental. People make career decisions for various reasons, Christine. Perhaps you should ask Greg why your highest performing team is departing simultaneously. This is about your termination, isn't it? She sounded resigned now. I've reviewed the circumstances. Greg didn't consult me before letting you go. I would never have approved it. That's between you and Greg, I replied. Though I'm curious why Pinnacle's division head wasn't involved in terminating a senior project manager. Christine sighed. Greg claimed it was a critical performance issue that couldn't wait for my return from the New York conference. I trusted his judgment. Clearly that was a mistake. I said nothing, letting the silence grow uncomfortable. Look, Morgan, Christine finally continued. I'm prepared to offer you your position back, with a 15% raise and a formal apology. We need your expertise. The Davidson account is threatening to leave. I appreciate the offer, Christine, but I've accepted a position elsewhere. We'll match whatever they're paying, plus 20%. Just name your price. It's not about the compensation. Then what would it take? There was desperation in her voice now. 8 key employees resigning simultaneously is catastrophic. The institutional knowledge alone, it would take time travel, I interrupted. Going back to when my mother fell ill, and Pinnacle showing basic human decency instead of punishing me for caring for her. The line went quiet. I need to go, Christine. I start my new position today, and I don't want to be late. Your non-compete, she began. Feel free to have your legal department contact mine, I replied evenly, though they might want to review the circumstances of my termination first. After hanging up, I drove to Meridian's offices, arriving early to prepare for the day. Sarah met me in the reception area, smiling. We're interviewing all 8 of your former colleagues, she said. Their qualifications are impressive. Interviews begin tomorrow. Thank you for giving them a fair opportunity, I replied. Fair opportunity, Morgan. They're exceptional talent. Pinnacle's loss is our gain. 2 days later, I received another call, this time from Robert Lynn in Human Resources at Pinnacle. I shouldn't be telling you this, he said quietly, but Greg Bennett has been suspended pending investigation. Christine is launching a review of management practices, particularly around family leave and time-off policies. That's good to hear, I said sincerely. The executive team is involved now, Robert continued. Losing an entire specialized team to a competitor has raised serious concerns. They're reviewing all terminations from the past year. By Friday, all 8 of my former team members had received and accepted offers from Meridian. We met for dinner to celebrate, raising glasses in a toast. To new beginnings, Jordan said. And to Morgan, Alex added, who showed us what genuine leadership truly means. The following week, I received a formal letter from Pinnacle, acknowledging my wrongful termination and offering a settlement to avoid litigation. I accepted it, not for the financial compensation, but for the official recognition that they had been wrong. That same day, the Davidson account signed with Meridian, bringing their business to us after learning that their preferred team now worked under my direction. The tide had shifted, but we had remained steady, like the shore, just as my mother had taught me. 35% growth in our division, 5 major client acquisitions, 3 of them former Pinnacle accounts, and efficiency improvements that had reduced operational costs by 25%. Outstanding work, Morgan, Sarah said when I finished. You and your team have surpassed every expectation. I smiled. My team deserves the recognition. They've been extraordinary. After the meeting, I returned to my office to find my 8 core team members waiting with a cake. What's this for? I asked. It's been exactly 3 months since we all made the jump together. Alex explained, we're celebrating our Liberation Day. I laughed. You're all impossible, but thriving. Jordan added, seriously, Morgan. Everyone's flourishing here. It was true, each team member had developed professionally in their new roles at Meridian. They had greater autonomy, better resources, and were finally receiving recognition for their contributions. Most importantly, they were valued as individuals, not just productivity metrics. My phone buzzed with a news alert. Pinnacle Solutions announces restructuring amid client departures. I showed it to the group. I heard they lost the Eastridge contract last week. Nadia said, distributing cake slices. That's 18% of their regional revenue. Greg's been let go, Priya added. Cleared out his office Monday. Christine is trying to salvage what remains, but I felt no satisfaction in Pinnacle's difficulties, only a sense of justice. The company wasn't failing because we had left. It was failing because its leadership had created a culture where employees were expendable, where caring for a critically ill mother was considered a lack of commitment. To Pinnacle, I raised my water glass. May they learn that a company is only as strong as how it treats its people. And to Morgan, Tomas added, who showed us we deserved better. 6 months after joining Meridian, I received an unexpected lunch invitation from Christine Taylor. She'd left Pinnacle and joined a leadership development firm, specializing in corporate culture. We met at a quiet restaurant overlooking Puget Sound. Christine looked different, more at ease. The constant tension in her expression had eased. Thank you for meeting me, she began. I wanted to apologize properly for what happened. You weren't directly responsible, I reminded her. No, but I fostered the environment that allowed it to happen. She sighed. After you and your team departed, everything began to unravel. The board brought in external consultants to assess what went wrong. The report wasn't complimentary to any of us in leadership. I nodded, waiting for her to continue. Pinnacle is being acquired by Tallman Group, Christine revealed, at a fraction of its previous valuation. They're essentially purchasing the client relationships and infrastructure. The news didn't surprise me. Pinnacle had been losing clients and talent for months. What about Greg? I asked. Still searching for employment, last I heard. His reputation in the industry. She trailed off. Let's just say your story has circulated extensively. I hadn't broadcast the details of my termination, but I hadn't concealed them either. When asked why I'd left Pinnacle, I shared the straightforward truth. I've learned a valuable lesson from all this. Christine continued. Now I'm helping other companies avoid similar mistakes. As we finished lunch, Christine asked the question I sensed had been on her mind throughout. Was it worth it? Leaving quietly instead of fighting. I thought about my team at Meridian, flourishing, engaged, and treated with dignity. I thought about the clients who had followed us, who now received superior service. I thought about my mother, who had taught me that sometimes the most powerful response isn't the most vocal. Yes, I replied simply. The outcomes speak for themselves. 1 year after that fateful email that had altered the trajectory of my career, Meridian named me Senior Vice President of Enterprise Solutions for the Pacific region. My division had become the company's flagship, innovative, efficient, and maintaining the highest employee retention rates in the organization. Each of my 8 team members had been promoted as well. Alex now led his own division. Jordan had transformed our client engagement strategy and earned recognition throughout the industry. The others had similarly distinguished themselves, their talents finally receiving the appreciation they deserved. On the anniversary of my termination from Pinnacle, I received a small package in the mail. Inside was my old jade plant, now somewhat larger, but still thriving, with a note from Robert Lynn. Saved this from your desk. Thought you might want it back now. Pinnacle's Seattle office closes next month. I placed the jade plant on my windowsill, where it would receive ample light. Like me, it had survived being discarded and found a better environment in which to flourish. That evening, I drove to the waterfront and stood on the shore where my mother and I used to walk. The tide ebbed and flowed against the rocks, just as it always had. I thought about how a single moment, A cold email ending my employment had ultimately led to greater success and fulfillment, not just for me, but for everyone who had followed me. You were right, Mom, I whispered to the water. Sometimes you need to stay steady and let the tides do their work. As I reflected on my journey from terminated project manager to senior vice president, I realized my vindication hadn't been in destroying Pinnacle. My vindication had been in building something superior, a workplace where family medical leave wasn't viewed as a lack of dedication, where people were valued beyond their productivity metrics, where leadership meant empowering others rather than controlling them. The greatest revenge wasn't in demolishing what had hurt me, but in creating something that made the old system obsolete. My mother would have been proud of that. Looking toward the future, I felt nothing but gratitude for the path that had brought me here, even the painful parts. Sometimes the worst moments lead to the best outcomes, if you remain as steady as the shore while the tides of change wash over you.